1230 WDVZ Cincinnati. The Buzz, a Black Planet radio station.
Cincinnati, are you feeling thirsty yet? You are listening to Talk of the Town right here on 1230 The Buzz. I'm your host, PG Sittenfeld, and let there be no doubt that Greg and Steve have been enormously hospitable guests. Greg actually brought me a delicious-looking bottle of something that you got at the...
Well, we just had our Craft Brewers Conference in Washington, D.C. last week, and the Devil's Backbone Brewery and the Brewers Association, along with many other local breweries in and around the D.C. market, have a Beggars and Thieves rye lager that I wanted to share with you on behalf of the Brewers Association.
And I look forward to it. I mentioned I might save it as a post-marathon sort of celebratory beverage. So, also a few tweets, again, if you want to, don't want to call in at 749-1230, and we will get back to the phones here in just a second. You can always tweet. One person says, even in the era of craft brews and its snobbery, I'm just reading a tweet, sometimes there's nothing better than an overpriced excuse me, I'm choking up here. There's nothing better than an overpriced cheap beer in a plastic cup at Great American Ballpark. All right, that was one. Another person, FBK, says, great show, can't call, but Mahogany's on the Banks has great red beer. It probably has a name, but don't know.
That's actually called Mahogany's Red.
The Mahogany's Red. I'm not sure I've had. I'm so laser focused on the pork chop when I'm at Mahogany's that I'm usually not saving as much there.
I was just bragging on their catfish myself.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay, so David asks on Twitter, and again, if you want to tweet at me, it's at VotePG. Does Greg see a market cap on craft beers, as in chipping into the Bud Light crowd? And he sort of editorializes, why would anyone only drink cheap beer? Right, life's too short just to have Budweiser. But, I mean, how much can you chip away at the big dogs and steal folks away from the Bud Light crowd?
Well, actually, the craft beer segment is the fastest growing segment in all of all the different segments, and we're gaining market share against large domestic brewers. The surveys say that by 2020 it should be around 12.5%. Right now, it's a 7% the size of market, so you can see it's growing rather rapidly. And I think that the cap is all up to the consumer, and I think people are realizing that there's better tasting beers out there. They're starting to understand the concept of local better tasting beers, and I think that this is going to be a wave that's going to happen for a long, long time.
Well, look, but to the other tweet, Bud Light does have its place, but if I'm drinking Bud Light, it's almost like sort of drinking like a cup of water with some hot buffalo wings or something. I mean, I'm not drinking it because it's some delicious, fantastic beer. So, just out of curiosity, if you do know these numbers, I was actually shocked to hear that Sam Adams, which I think of as a big-time beer, obviously, killer brand name, 1% of the market share. What are the top, 1 or 2 or 3 in terms of market share domestically?
Well, Anheuser-Busch InBev has 50% market share.
Yeah. It's those Clydesdales, Greg. You got to get a mascot.
Well, actually, in the Findlay Market Parade, we have the local Christian Moerlein horse team in there.
Awesome, very smart.
It was really it's a local horse team from the Wegman farm, and we're really happy about that. But the second largest one is the which is going to be a Miller Coors, and they're at 30%.
Right.
So those two large conglomerates actually make up 80% of the U.S. beer market. Small craft brewers make up 7.5%, and then in between you have imports and
well, I say keep chipping away craft brewers. I got to ask you this. It's raising so many sort of curiosities for me. Who drinks Miller High Life? Like, who's the target there?
You'd have to ask Miller.
He says with disgust. All right, well answered. All right, let's go back to the phone line. We'll go to Chris. Chris, welcome to Talk of the Town with PG Sittenfeld.
Oh, thanks, PG, for having me on. And Greg, I want to thank you for all you've done for bringing back beer in Cincinnati. And the Christian Moerlein brand is just wonderful here in Cincinnati. I do have one question for you. A lot of the craft beers seem to focus on ales, and you have a great lineup of lagers. I was wondering if the craft beer industry is making a mistake with not putting lagers out on the market.
Well, there's a good reason why that is. That lagers, believe it or not, take longer to actually produce, and they're very, very complex beers. As I always tell people, if you have a flaw in an ale, you can disguise it with hops, which is the spicing agent of beer, very easily. In a lager, you cannot disguise a flaw at all. However, There are great lagers coming on the market from craft brewers. I know we do a great job with our Moerlein Lager House. It's a Helles. We also have Barbarossa, which is another lager.
Sure, good one.
And there's many great craft brewers that are coming out with lagers that are much more complex. Great question.
Chris, are you a lager guy then?
Yes, I am. I love going down to the Lager House and having the Lager House beer. And what's so ironic, the reason why I asked this question is in the Cincinnati Enquirer, when they talked about the 1-year anniversary of the Lager House, they said the lager beer was the biggest seller there, which is kind of against the current of craft beers that make ales.
Yeah, actually,
so that's kind of what.
Yeah, actually, the Moerlein Lager House Lager represents about 50% of our total sales of beer at the Lager House.
Wow. Chris, you want to make a nomination for favorite beer and favorite place to drink it before we keep moving here?
Having a Lager House in the beer garden at the Christian Moerlein Lager House is the best place you can do it, and particularly on a day like this.
Our guests approve of the answer, Chris. We appreciate the call, and let's keep moving here. Try and get as many folks in before the break, and we'll go to Charles. Now, Charles, welcome to Talk of the Town.
How you doing?
Good. How about you?
Excellent. Listen, I'm a beer drinker, but I'm not a beer connoisseur. So I can drink a Budweiser.
Me too. Yeah.
But I can also drink a Busch.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, that's my question. What's the real difference between the two, because they're made by the same company?
And Greg, how can someone, and this goes for me too, like I don't have a very sophisticated palate here. How can someone, I guess, increase their appreciation for life's finer beers?
Well, I come from the school of there's a beer for every person. I believe that for my taste buds, some days when it's really hot outside and I'm mowing the grass and that sort of thing, I go for a lighter beer. They're a little bit more quenching in that.
Greg, I got it. Do you really drink a beer when you're mowing the grass?
Actually,
we need to bring in Patty Hardman here. Patty, have you ever seen your husband mowing the grass while drinking a beer?
Hey, but you still there?
Actually, my wife will say he doesn't even know what a lawnmower looks like.
Yeah, Greg ripped the microphone away from her.
Why he's watching the people.
Yeah. I was saying you were going to say, Greg, though.
Hey, PG.
Yeah.
Hey, but before I hang up, though, can you answer the question? Is there a difference between Busch and Budweiser, even though they're made by the same company?
Good question, Charles.
Yeah, there actually is a difference, and normally it's in the amount of ingredients that you put into the beer, such as malt, and the percentage of malt or better ingredients or a longer lagering process. There is a correlation between inexpensive beer and the amount of ingredients that are put in. Now, I will say that inexpensive beer today is much better than inexpensive beer 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, there is a little bit of a difference between the products. Not much.
Because really, I can't really tell the difference in taste that much. There's maybe a slight difference, but it's not a big difference.
Charles, we will set up a blind taste test for you sometime soon. All right,
I guess my favorite beers, I like the Jamaican beer, the Red Stripe.
Oh yeah, I've had that. That's a good one too. All right, Charles, we appreciate the call. We will talk to you soon. All right, here's I'm kind of a competitive guy, so this is what I need to know when it comes to beer culture. And I should also say, just to drive this point home, you talk about the 100,000 jobs in craft brewing. You talk about the Brewery Heritage Trail. It's fun to have this conversation just because people enjoy beer and they like the flavor. But this is jobs. This is economic development. This is the vibrancy of your city, which is why I think so many people do appreciate what's happening in the Brewery District with the Revitalization Corporation. What's going on with the Lager House at the banks and everything else that you all are doing. What cities are ahead of Cincinnati right now? Is Milwaukee ahead of us? Is St. Louis ahead of us? And what's it going to take to catch them?
Well, actually, each city has their own personality. So I would say that you can point to a lot of cities where there's a lot of a bigger beer culture. Denver would be one. Portland would be another. New York City would be another. But I would say that Cincinnati, with the Lager House and the things that Christian Moerlein Brewing has done, and many of the other craft brewers in this city are doing, along with the Boston Beer Company, and we're starting to put Cincinnati on the map in a big way.
Excellent.
So I've invested tens of millions of dollars to try to ensure that this happens. And I know many other people are investing money too. So,
So folks, get down there and drink a beer. Greg needs to get his money back. So everyone needs to raise their glass. Right?
But really, we are going to be opening up a tap room up at the actual Over the Rhine Brewery sometime in May. So we're really excited about that. It is going to be a great location to take a tour and have a beer up there.
Perfect.
Before, I need to shout out the Lager House, the Lager bread. That's my favorite thing.
That is some good stuff.
To do that, I think about that while I was thinking about it. But I kind of want to know, from you, Steve, you're the historian. What's next for Cincinnati from a brewery standpoint?
Well, again, the Heritage Trail, we're hopefully going to have the first phase of it up this later this year. However, it's going to be over a multi-year component because we have so many buildings to showcase and to share that history of.
Will this be an Over the Rhine area?
Over the Rhine primarily, but it'll link through downtown and again, longer term link out to all those sites throughout the city. Even again, as far as out as Westchester, there'll be, we're continuing to build. There'll be a lot of opportunity to build the virtual component and expand upon that and really have a really unique and a really world-class way to showcase that history. And of course, just always to continue to bring people. There's nothing better than actually walking through these buildings and seeing these buildings repopulated and be able to still walk through them and see all these cool cellars and tunnels and everything throughout Over the Rhine.
Well, there is no question that it is adding to the vibrancy of our city. It is putting Cincinnati on the map. So, Tamai, I don't know about you. You ready to go out and grab a drink?
I am.
All right, let's do it. We, of course, want to remind everyone to partake in this activity very responsibly. But Greg Hardman, thank you so much for being with us. Steve Hampton, thank you for being with us. That is our show for today. Until next time, I'm PG Sittenfeld, and you are the talk of the town.
Everybody, let's get into it. Get stoked, get it started. Get it started. Get it started. Let's get it started.